Hello and welcome to the replay. My name is Tamra Rager and I am just getting set up to paint today. And it's very early in the morning here and I'm getting set up to paint. I did not sleep well last night, so I'm a little bit, kind of have a scratchy throat, so forgive me for that. But anyway, I thought I'd come on as I was getting set up. I thought I should show people my favorite tools. And one of my most favorite things to do is, and I'm not going to bury the lead on this, when I set up to paint, I use these trays this is actually a takeout lid from Runza, believe it or not. And these things are perfect for, I use them for my palette. And this is one of my favorite things to do, is to peel the previous layer of paint off. It's so satisfying. Now, if the paint's not real thick, it doesn't peel off as well. Like on this particular one, I don't have a ton of paint, but I just take my fingernail and I just kind of peel it back. And then it just comes off in these strips. And then I just kind of take it and I throw it in my trash can. And then it's okay if you leave a little bit on there because you're just going to paint over it. It's not going to be a big deal. It's dried. It's not going to change the color of anything that's going on here. But here's another one. This one's perfect. This has a ton of paint on it. So it's so satisfying. You just take your fingernail and you go like this. It's so, I don't know why I get into this. This is just like one of my little, idiosyncrasies. It's so satisfying to just pull this off in these big chunks. And as the paint gets, layered on there, it'll just come off real easy. So this is part of my setup. Before I start painting, I take my palettes and I just start pulling the old paint off. If it's thick, I start pulling it off. And if there's a thin spot, I just leave it. This one has a little bit on it. This one's mostly white. But it peels off in strips and you can see what's underneath it. I mean, it's just creepy. So anyway, that's one of my favorite things to do, believe it or not. Okay, so those are ready for today. Now, I want to talk to you about some of my, the supplies that I use. I absolutely love Nova color paints. They are my absolute favorite. They are made in America. They come out of California. It's an online company only, and you can order from them. I'm gonna have to put together a list of my favorites. This happens to be a turquoise pearl. This isn't one that I use a ton of, but it just happened to be sitting here. I ordered some pearl colors for a particular project that I worked on. Let's see. One of my absolute favorites is quinacridone magenta. And I have it in a larger tub because I use a lot of this. This is one of the ones that makes a great periwinkle color. If you mix this with ultramarine blue, it's fabulous. One of my favorite yellows is Indian yellow. And Indian yellow is great if you mix it with Perol red and then maybe a little bit of like a organic orange color. It just really is really pretty. And it's a transparent color, so other colors kind of shine through. And then, let's see here. I don't know if you can see the cat. The cat just crawled up here. He likes to drink out of my water. When I start painting, I always have two, and I don't think you can see them on here. I have two big cups of water, and I use one for my dirtiest brush, and then I have a second one for like another second rinse. So if I'm doing something with a lot of dark colors, I do like a double rinse sometimes. Just kind of depends. Payne's Gray is another one of my favorite colors from Nova. I just love Nova color paints. The consistency is nice. Organic orange is one of my favorites. I just have a whole array of these. And believe it or not, I try to keep them in alphabetical order. Okay, now this one is Napathol Crimson. I don't know if I'm saying that right. This is a new red that I'm trying out. I haven't quite decided if I like it or not. I like Parole Red. This is a little bit lighter. And then I have one called Quinacridone Red, which is, it's a little bit darker. Okay, Ambrose, you need to get down, honey. Thank you. Okay, so I also, one of my favorite mark making tools, and again, this kind of depends on what I'm working on, but I have these are Neocolor 2. Wait a minute. These are Neocolor 1. These are non-water soluble, which means if you use them for mark making and you paint over them, they will repel the paint a little bit. So there's not it kind of rolls off of them a little bit. They don't move around. And I really like these for certain projects. I really like them. And my absolute favorite one that I use all the time, of course, is white. I like to do a lot of white mark making. The teal colors are another great ones, another one that I really like. And then there's a nice kind of a berry red color that I use a lot of. And then black, I use that occasionally. But these will not move around. And these are the Neocolor 1 crayons. Now, I also have, and I like to keep them in their little containers just because I don't want to get them mixed up. These are the Neocolor 2. These are water soluble. So like if I do like a mark making with, let's say, the red, and I come over it with like a white, let's say I go over it with white, it's going to turn pink. So these move around, they're water soluble, they just kind of blend in. So depending on what you're working on, these are really nice. And you can tell that I've used them a lot, but since I have kind of graduated to the Neocolor 1, I'm not using these quite as much. So those are two of my favorite mark making tools. Then I have this little caddy. This just has regular pencils in here. This is just regular lead. Then here's another one that's regular pencil. These are some of my favorite mark making tools as well. Let me find one that's easier to read. These are Stabilo Woodies, and they're kind of thick, and they have a big thick tip on them. And these are also water soluble. So wherever you mark make with these, if you go over it with your paint, it will come up and it'll pull this color. So you have to be prepared for that when you're using these. And it just kind of depends on what you're working on. They all have their areas of, where they're going to benefit you and where they may hinder something you're doing. And then I also have Prismacolor pencils in here, and these are nice. And I usually do my final mark making with the Prismacolor pencils. That's like one of the last things I do. And then to hold these marks in place before I varnish, I use a fixative. It's called Workable Fixative. And before I do the final varnish, after my mark making and everything's all done, I've signed the piece of artwork, I spray it with this. And typically, depending on the piece, I may do 2 layers of this. I typically will I'll spray back and forth this direction, and then I'll come back in and I'll spray back and forth this other direction, just to kind of make sure I haven't missed anything. And any place where I've used a darker colored, let's say I came in later and did some mark making with a dark color, I always hit that area with this again, because if you don't, when you go to varnish, it can smear that color because it's water soluble. So those are things that you have to kind of understand and look out for and be aware of the products that you're using, because they can affect the final step of varnishing the pieces of work. So this is the fixative that I use. And then I have, for the actual varnishing, I use a couple different types of varnish. Nova makes one that is, this one is kind of a satin varnish. It says it's matte, but actually it's satin, which is fine as long as you know it's going to be satin. I think they need to rename that. I should probably email them and ask them to rename it. Then I have the main one that I use is matte varnish by Liquitex. This is my favorite. For the bigger pieces of artwork, I like to use matte, and I learned this from Betty Franks. When you have a large piece of artwork, you want the finish to be matte so that if the sun comes in the room or the sun happens to hit it, you won't have that glossy section when you're trying to look at it. It will be matte, and you'll be able to see the entire painting without that glossy area sticking out. So that's why I use matte. Now on the smaller pieces of art, I do like to use glossy sometimes, but I still use the Liquitex. They have a glossy one as well. So those are some of my favorite tools. Let's see. Oh, my brushes. I just have, and these are Prismacolor, or not Prismacolor. These are China markers. And these, again, these are non-water soluble. They tend to be a little bit more like a grease marker. You can actually write on glass with these. So they have their place too. I don't use these a lot, just occasionally. Okay, so my brushes, depending on what I'm working on, I have, grab this other one. These are some of my favorite brushes, and I use all of these for different reasons. This is just a spatula. As you can see, it's a well-worn spatula, and I use this to apply gesso when I'm starting a painting, like painting on paper. I gesso it with this particular tool. It just makes it very easy to spread. I can kind of dig in, make some marks on it, come back in, pat them down a little bit. I use this a lot. You can cover a lot of area with this in a short amount of time. And it's just a regular spatula. They actually make a tool that's called a pusher for artists, but I just happen to have this, so that's what I use. And then I recently purchased these bigger brushes for some of the different projects that I'm working on. The big flat brush is great to come in and do a large area. This pointed one, I'm going to be using this today. I'm getting ready. I'm going to work on some paintings. I'm going to finish a couple, start a couple, and I'm going to be using this the round pointed one today. And I know this has a name, and I don't know what it is. Anyway, these are three of my favorite big brushes. These all came from Michael's. We have a Michael's store here in Omaha, and that's where those three came from. I actually bought those in the store. And then this is a rigger, and it has a long bristles. This is what I do this is what I use when I make all those little swirly curly things, and any kind of, it's also been called a script brush. That's one of my favorite brushes. Then I just have some various kind of rounded brushes that I like to use. This is another brush that's similar to the rigger or the script brush, but it's not quite as long, and I use this a lot too. And then I have a new brush, and this is called a dagger. Let me turn it so you can see it. See how it swoops up on the end? It's a dagger. So I'm actually, hold my hand behind it so you can see it. It's got a little point to it. I'm really anxious to use this today. I just got this. I think it's going to be really nice to draw like paint a nice thin line, and then kind of do like a little fan out. I'm really anxious to try this today. Ooh, excuse me. So those are my brushes. You know what? Hang on a second. I got to take a sip here. I don't want to get to coughing. I'm so sorry. I have a broken sternum, and it is just, it kills me to cough. So I don't want to get to coughing here. Okay. I'm 5 weeks into a broken sternum, and I'm telling you, it has not been fun. So anyway, so I'm going to put these away, and I'm just going to start in with some painting. I'm going to move these aside. Oh, I forgot to talk to you about my palette knife. Oh my goodness, I have to show you my palette knives. I have 3 of these. I don't know where the third one's at. These are 3 of my favorite palette knives. And honestly, the one I use the most, cheap plastic guy. No joke. He's very flexible. Whip the paint on, you know, smooth it out. This thing works great. I used this one a lot when I worked on Clarky Royale for the background. And then this one is nice to get in like a tight spot because it's smaller. But honestly, I use these to dip my paint out of my jars, and then I also use these to paint with. This one particularly. In fact, let me show you the painting that I have. I started working on this a week or so ago, and I'm going to come in here. I want to finish this up today, and we can talk about it briefly. I don't know if you can see the whole thing. I hope you can. This is a painting that I've done completely with a palette knife. Okay, this little guy. I've used this palette knife on this entire painting. And I'm going to come in today and I'm going to make this tree here about 3 times as big. I'm going to extend him up. He needs to be like way bigger. And then I'm going to do, maybe throw a few more trees in the background. And then I have to decide what I'm going to do. I may decide to put like maybe a fence or something over here. I haven't quite decided yet. And I may come back in here with a little bit more white to make this look a little bit more snowy. And at the very end, I'm going to come in with a, oh, where is it at? I'm going to come in at the very end with this, it's a Super Pearl, it's called Super Pearl White. I think I also have a gold one. I may do a little bit of both, but this is a pearlescent, oh wait, this is the pearlescent opaque. I think the gold one's the transparent. I'm going to use the transparent one. This one's opaque, which means it covers. I have another one of these that's it's transparent. And so what it'll do is it'll put like a little bit of an iridescent sheen all over everything, but everything, you'll be able to see everything behind it, but it'll give it this glistening, that is not even a word. It will make it glisten and make it seem like it's a little bit more snowy. So that's what I'm working on today. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I will talk to you soon, okay? I hope you have a great day. Okay, bye-bye.